Welcome to the final Amelia and Soma webinar of 2020. We've got something lined up for you in the new year, but it hasn't been confirmed, so we're not going to announce it yet. If you want to find out more, sign up to the newsletter, either Amelia's or Princess and the Pinot. Visit our websites to sign up to those, and we'll let you know once our 2021 Year of Positivity webinar is going to happen. And we are here this evening with Laurent Pare from Cellier des Dauphins. And we are really excited because both Amelia and I love wines from the Rhone. We love the Rhone varietals from other countries as well. So yeah, it's going to be a great exploration of the wines that we have today. And to talk about the Rhone and those varietals. There are two wines that were recommended for you to buy, or some of you won them. So congratulations to those of you who won the tasting packs. We've got the Les Dauphins, you can't really see on my screen, Les Dauphins White and the Les Dauphins Red. And I know some of you would have gone and bought those from supermarkets. There we are. And but you know, if you weren't able to get hold of those, we made some other recommendations for you to get hold of other wines from the Rhone, or just open a bottle of your own Rhone wine and enjoy and join us. There are new faces and familiar faces that I can see on the attendee list. We welcome you all. Thank you all for joining us. We've managed to gather quite an international gathering. So if anyone's not from the UK or France today, hello to you as well. Anyone that's not been to one of our webinars before or not familiar with Zoom, we tend to ask you to chat, make comments in the chat box. You should be able to see chat box to be able to write in there. If there are specific questions that you want to ask Laurent or Amelia, then please put them in the Q&A box. Have we lost Laurent? Okay, he'll join us. I'm sure he'll be back in a minute. I'll just carry on with the intro. Please put specific questions in the Q&A box, and every now and then we'll check the Q&A box to make sure that we answer those. We've got two wines to go through. I will just start talking a little bit about the Rhone while we wait for Laurent to come back. I've got another background to kind of show Rhone. So first of all, I want to show these maps. So I've been sent, in fact, I'll take off my screen. I've been sent some wonderful maps by James Llewellyn, and they're these really lovely maps. So thank you, James, for sending these to me. And I've been swatting up on my Rhone appellations, and he's offered you guys 20% off. So at James Llewellyn, HYO20 is the code to get 20% off these maps. They're amazing. At the moment, they're only France, all the French regions, but they are they're really clear and they're really useful because I'm studying for my diploma with WSET. They are perfect for that. There's an introduction range for if you just want to find something out, and then there's a complete range which is specifically for studying. And within the Rhone, if I move a little bit, so I've got a picture of Marilyn Monroe behind me, and she keeps cropping in. So you can see this is within Southern Rhone. At the bottom of that map, which you can't see, you can just see a little bit of blue peeking through. That's where the Mediterranean is. You can see the river coming down, and you can see where Cellier des Dauphins is on that map. So they're in Southern Rhone, and that's where Laurent is joining us from today. There we go, there's Marilyn. Welcome back, Laurent. Oh no, don't go again.
Okay.
You okay? Are you back? It's frozen a little bit. Okay, so while we try and make sure that he comes back, so I want Amelia.
Sorry, my connection is terrible.
I'd like Amelia to talk us through her love of Rhone wines and what kind of got you into them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know we're focusing on Southern Rhone. I think, honestly, my first experience of the Rhone was when I was 10, and my father pretty much weaned me on wine by just like giving me a sip of wine before dinner at age 6. That's probably illegal because I think technically you have to be 7 to actually taste at home with your parents, but oh well. And so he'd always give me a sip. And when I was 10, he gave me a sip of white wine. I was like, oh my goodness, I taste honey and peaches and apricot. And he almost burst into tears. He's like, that's the perfect tasting note for Viognier. And obviously the spiritual homeland for Viognier is in the Northern Rhone. It was not a Condrieu though. We cannot drink a Condrieu regularly at home. That's rather out of our like midweek price range. But definitely that was kind of like my first real appreciation of a Rhone wine. And then definitely I kind of grew up in a household where my dad is a huge Rhone fan. He was always like, you know, if they bombed Burgundy, if they bombed Bordeaux, it would be fine, just as long as there was the Rhone. And I'm like, I'm not sure that's completely politically correct, but like, anyway, that just shows very much the bias in our family for Rhone, whites and reds. So whether it's, you know, even the Chateauneuf du Papes, I, for my birthday, actually had a whole bunch of 1980s white Chateauneuf du Papes, which were singing, absolutely singing from like 1986. This was like last year. So what I love about the Rhone is quite frankly, the diverse variety of grapes, how food friendly they are, how the whites can be just as age-worthy, complex and nuanced as the reds. I also think they're really like great value for money if you know where to shop, you know, whether it's the Gigondas or Carène, or like there's certain areas where you're like, okay, if I can't have a Chateauneuf du Pape, you can actually shop around and there's great value to be had. I also just love the ambience there. Definitely, and I'm speaking a lot of the Southern Rhone, it is, you know, it does feel like you're in the Mediterranean, and I love the food, I love the ambience, I love the atmosphere of the people. So it's always been, yeah, I've always had a soft spot. And then definitely now spending a lot of time in the States, but even like on my trip to South Africa last year, it's just amazing to see how versatile you know, these grapes in the Rhone are, and quite frankly, how they're saving lots of parts of the world, because lots of these grapes can be drought resistant. These Mediterranean grapes are quite hardy. So now in countries who are really having to worry about sustainability and climate change, you're starting now to see these GSM blends, and the Sanso grape, which would normally be shoved into a blend. Now the Sanso has been appreciated for by itself in South Africa, and now in parts of California. I think we're only going to get more and more acquainted with these grapes, not just in blends, but on their own too. And I think they're really going to help save some regions around the world with the increasing temperatures. So that's just my love for it. And as I'm in LA, I kind of got sent a slightly different selection, but I do absolutely have the Les Dauphins, the kind of Côte de Rhone, which you get in Waitrose, because I've written about it several times, and I'd always write about this wine in the Waitrose magazine around Christmas because they do it in Magnum. I hope they're still doing it in Magnum, because that for me was one of the best Christmas wines and festive wines. Obviously, I know we're not meant to be having parties or big numbers, but hey, if you're just getting a Magnum for the two of you or whatever, I'm not going to judge. It's 2020. And then I've been sent a couple of the other ranges too, which I can't wait to talk about, because they're literally hot off the press and will be coming to the UK soon. I think Laurent's coming.
I'm back. Sorry, guys.
Hey.
No problem.
Don't worry, I just whistled away. Wine waffle.
In terms of like what I love about the Rhone is with Burgundy and Bordeaux, there's a little bit of an intimidation factor, a little bit like you're supposed to like the really good, expensive stuff, and anything below a certain price potentially isn't worth buying. Whereas the Rhone, you can get extraordinarily good value for money and extraordinarily premium wines, whole range in between, and you don't feel like there's any pretense or pretentiousness or, you know, what you should or shouldn't be drinking. It's very much a, I like this, so I'm going to drink it. So it feels a lot more accessible than some of the other wine regions, and I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's a Mediterranean thing too, just the whole ambience there, the whole environment, and they are just so good, like with food and just like on their own, but also just like with really like cheese boards, charcuterie boards, and then the heartier stuff too. And as I say, like I love having that red in a Magnum format. That was like such a fun wine to bring out at a drinks party. And I actually just posted about it on my Instagram story, and some people in the States were like, I've seen that in my local supermarket. It's such great value. And it's so hard being able, particularly in the States, like when I go supermarket shopping, find wines which really deliver at their price point. And yet you guys absolutely do.
Yeah. And in terms of Cellier de Dauphin, now Laurent can tell us more about it, but I've picked up a few kind of little snippets. So it's in the Southern Rhone, but it has like a cooperative of vineyards, so lots of different families. And Laurent was telling us earlier before we started at 0:00, was telling us that he knows all of the vineyards, all of the different parcels, all of exactly where all of the different parcels of wine come from. And I've got 2,300 vine growing families in the cooperative. I mean, that's an incredible number. And there's 12,500 hectares under vine. It's huge. So for the, you know, for someone to then be aware, and I just have great admiration for you, Laurent, because to be aware of everything that's being grown, or the way that it's being grown and how it's developing, and when to pick and when to, you know, blend, and you know, everything. It's such a complex operation. I mean, tell us a little bit about what, you know, your day. It's be crazy.
A day, I think, yes, there is several periods in the year, but first of it, so thanks for introducing Cellier des Dauphins. So it's been created in 1965. So people at the time, vine growers at the time, they said, okay, maybe we can put it common some tools and create a company. So some of them, they make a joint venture. It's called in France, it's called the cooperative. So first of all, it's an agriculture cooperative. So you put your vineyards together and your grapes and your fruit together, and then they create this company. So first it was a union, and then they create the brand Cellier des Dauphins in 1967. And after, so it's more than 50 years now, and the brand grows and grows and grows really, really well.
And you've got such a range of wines within your portfolio as well. Like, you know, we're talking about that range, and you cover all of those ranges: red, white, rosé, and it's just
our core appellation for sure is Côte du Rhône in the three colors: white, rosé, and reds. But we also do Village. We also do IGP Méditerranée, which is the level just under the AOP. And on top of that, we have the village with the name of the village, like Plan de Dieu, we're going to talk about. And on top of that, we have Les Crus, which are Gigondas, Vaqueras, Queyran, Vin Sobre, and the most famous is Chateauneuf du Pape.
Yeah, we'll come on talking about the kind of different levels, because I think, you know, it's something that I think can confuse people quite easily, like why is this one more expensive than that one. So I'll come on to that in a bit. I just wanted to, like, you mentioned the name Cellier de Dauphin again, and what it always reminds me, and maybe this is just a quirky kind of me thing, but Dauphin, it reminds me of, do you know the film The Marie Antoinette by Sofia Coppola with Kirsten Dunst in it? Beautiful film. And like they always, I mean, it's in English, but they always talk about the Dauphin.
I think it's Kristen Dunst, right?
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst. Yeah. And so whenever I see one of your wine bottles, it always makes me think of that movie, and I think of, you know, the beauty of that movie, and, you know, wine and film pairing, who knows? But yeah.
It's funny because the concept of a cooperative makes absolute sense, but do you think that sometimes it's sometimes hard for people to get around, like, oh, a cooperative, the wine can't be as good, or like, still,
it's
you still
often,
find that you come
yeah,
across that?
yeah, we still have to argue or like make the best of it. But especially at this time of what the world is living on, cooperative means local,
Yeah.
and it's growers together. Like our wineries and around, there is less than 20 kilometers in all our vineyards, so it's really local. So
Wow.
all the grapes are produced no more than 20, 30 kilometers from our winery. So it's really local. We reduce the time of transportation for the grapes. All the bottle we buy are produced really around our winery. So cooperative was maybe a bit pejorative, like a bit
Yeah.
negative.
Yeah.
But at this time, it start to be more positive. Like the view of people start to be like we are locavore now. So we consume more locally, and we want to produce locally, and we want to promote our vineyard, our terroir.
Well, and I think it makes sense in a couple of ways, like as we were talking, I mentioned before, like climate change and things like that, to be able to have that versatility, to be able to pick from the top sites, to be able to make consistent, premium wine. That's one thing, but it's also quite funny. Like in America, there is this rugged individualism where it's like, no, this is my winery, this is my, but now actually either just because it's too expensive to have your own grapes, or people want to be able to be flexible with where they get their grapes, you end up having a kind of cooperative model set up, whether it's the Lompoc Ghetto in Santa Barbara or in Paso, they've got like a makeshift kind of cooperative where people come together, and it's not called a cooperative. They come up with like funky, trendy names. And I'm like, that's just basically going back to the cooperative model, which is like, backing up your point. It's now seen as a very positive thing, collaborative thing, makes sense for the environment, makes sense.
But I mean, yeah, in addition of the grapes putting in common, it's also you put in common your tool, like a tractor to work the ground. It can be used by several growers, so the investment can be a bit lower, and they can save some cost. Or a specific machine to cut, the edge of the vines, or work the soil, specific machines to work the soil. You can put that in common. That's also the principle of cooperative, which is really interesting. And so when they create these cooperatives, they say, okay, we're going to buy tanks together, and we're going to buy a bottling line to put our production in bottle, to put it on market. It was pretty visionary. You imagine 50 years ago how visionary they were, those guys, and the model is pretty viable. Yeah, viable.
Viable, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, particularly if you're only using certain machines for like 2 weeks of the year.
That's right. Some machine you just use it one time or two times, like the cropper. The cropper, you're going to use it for 3 to 4 weeks in a year. So it's better to use it. Several vine growers can use it.
And even though it's a cooperative, you're still celebrating the vine growers. Like you're still celebrating those. It's not like, oh, everyone just shove their grapes in together and mush it up and we'll make some wine. It's not like a bulk wine operation. You've actually, you're sensitive to the different vines.
We had to choose some vine growers to put in the front, but as you said,
did you only choose good-looking ones?
Oh, come on.
Sorry, I couldn't resist, but the two behind me.
No, but he's good looking in picture, but in reality, he's all right. Yes. So no, we wanted to show. So you said, Soma, like it's 2,300 wine growers, but it's also 2,300 families. So it's a proper community. So each vine grower has a family, and people, they all live around vine growing. But they're not only vine growers, they crop olive trees, they do lavender, they do apricot trees, they do lots of, they do black truffles, some of them, like Mathieu. Mathieu is a friend of mine. He does with his father and his uncle and brothers. They do the vineyard, but they also have truffles filled. So they make black truffles. So it's a full economy around the vine growing. So that's really, really important for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to just quickly go through kind of the different levels of the AOC, and then we can do the tasting of the white and the red, and we can talk about the other ones as well. So just kind of, let's see if I can get it close enough. So you start off kind of at the lowest level, which is the Côte de Rhone. That's the broadest kind of name, I suppose, of the Rhone wines. And then as you go up a level, you get to the village, so it will say on the label village. So that means that there are specific restrictions in terms of which villages and certain grapes and I guess style of wine as well within that.
Yes. So you can imagine like it's like a pyramid. So the base of the pyramid are the Côte du Rhône. So it makes the wider area and bigger volume. On top of that, you have village, Côte du Rhône village. So you said about restriction, for sure. It's different kind of terroir as well. Most of them, it's like a more sloppy on terrace, etc. After you have the name Côte du Rhône village, but with the name of the village. Plan de Dieu is one of them.
Yeah, so that one's
Primera, the good-looking one, is one of them as well. And so Primera is more on elevation vineyard, and Plan de Dieu is really at the bottom of the valley. And on top of those village with the name of the village, you have Les Crus. Les Crus is really the point of the pyramid, so less volume, less surface, smaller yield as well. So when you talk about Côte du Rhône, the yield is around 55 hectoliters an hectare. And when you talk about cru, it's between 31 and 34 hectoliters an hectare. So it's pretty low. And naturally, because you manage to control the yield, you manage to leave the concentration. It's like a natural effect. More you have fruit on a tree, less you're going to have concentration.
Yeah.
It's like the plant is going to feed the fruits differently when there is a lot or if there is a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you noticed much vintage variation, like with climate change, or is it pretty consistent? Because I always in the past was like, oh, the Rhone is pretty consistent compared to places like Burgundy. That was another like plus point in my books. But have you noticed in the last 2 or 3 years like certain variations, or having to pick earlier, or just having to work with the grapes differently?
It's pretty consistent, but with some variation for sure. Like 19 was an amazing vintage, exceptional vintage. It was really early, but also really concentrate. 18 was more fruity. 20 is looking also more fruity. So 20 and 18 will be kind of similar. 19 is exceptional. 17 was really, really low yield, so more concentration as well. But it's pretty consistent in terms of style. You know, there is not a lot of variation, but there is some tiny difference. Yeah.
Great. Should we move on to the first wine? If you can kind of talk us through the tasting notes of this one and which grapes are in it, because I don't think it says. Yeah.
So in Rhone Valley, but you know the difference between Rhone Valley North and Rhone Valley Sud, the south. So in the south of the Rhone Valley, it's called Rhone Valley Meridional. So meridional because it's closer of the sea.
Mhm.
So we're closer of the Mediterranean Sea than the North Valley, which is called Côte du Rhône septentrional, which is only Syrah for reds and mainly Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier for whites. For whites, it's mainly Grenache Blanc. That's the main varietals. So Grenache Blanc, and we have also the chance to have some Viognier. And the blend we propose you, it's Grenache and Viognier.
So the Viognier presumably provides the perfume, and the peachiness and the Grenache will help a little bit more with the body and structure.
Yeah, definitely. The Grenache will bring the body, the structure, and we're going to play with the Viognier to add the spice, the flowery effects, the fruity effect. You talk about peach, white flowers as well. More into the I said terpenic. I don't know if you get it.
Yeah.
Terpenic. More the fruit. You see, but the most famous is muscat. Muscat is terpenic, and Viognier can bring this kind of terpenic aspect, but also ripe fruit like apricot, ripe apricot, white flowers.
Yeah,
it's very mouth-filling. Like, I don't know if it's just because it's my first wine of the day, but it's like filling my mouth, like, you know, it's
I'm so jealous. It sounds exactly like my kind of. I love Rhone whites are possibly my favorite style in the world. Like, and it is that mouth-filling aspect. It's that nuanced aspect. It's great on their own. They're just so versatile with food. Yeah,
So
living
it's ripe fruity, but we also keep a really nice freshness all the time. So it's not really low IPH. We kind of average, but it's always really fresh, really fruity.
Are you having more issues with acidity, as you know, with
No, definitely not. It's naturally balanced, you know. If we talk about pH, it's around 3.3, 3.4. So not too acidic, but not too I don't
flabby.
know, too flabby.
Flabby.
Yeah, flabby, not too flabby. You know, it's the right the right balance.
And we've had a question, I thought from Hannah. I thought Claret is also a popular varietal in Southern Rhone.
That's right.
In Laurent's thought on Claret in the blend and what it brings to it.
We do use some clarets in some of our blend, but claret is not so. The surface are not so big, so we keep that for specific blend. Claret will bring more freshness, like more tonicity. It's more tonic, really aromatic, but we don't use it in this one.
I've had a comment from Vidya saying she loves this white and she couldn't get it for this evening, but yeah, she tried it for the first time around this time last year. It does seem to be kind of, as the days get colder, I think people move away from like the Sauvignon Blanc or the Chablis, and they go for these more fuller, rounder wines. I mean, I drink these kinds of wines all year round, but you know, there do seem to be trends, and yeah, it does sound like it's this kind of time of year. And we've had another question from Louise. What food do you think would go best with this white wine?
I really like it as not a starter, but aperitif. Like we like to eat brandade de morue. Do you know brandade de morue? It's kind of a pâté.
Isn't it a veal? No, isn't it a terrine or a veal?
It's made from fish, from fish. Like the morue, it's called cabillaud.
Pike. Chris says it's pike. So yeah.
So it's really, really nice. You can put it on bread or. So yeah, and also with white meat, but and can go with a roast of vegetable, no problem. It's really versatile.
I think it's great for like a roast dinner. Yeah, like a roast.
Roast dinner. Why not? You know.
Yeah. We've had people asking where they can get it. I've got all of those kinds of details on my website if you want to have a look. But the two that we're drinking tonight in the UK, you can get them from Tesco and Asda. And then there's another one, which I think is the Village, that you can get from Waitrose.
That's it. The Village is in Waitrose, yeah.
Yeah. So slightly different levels from the different supermarkets, as you would expect. Do you want to talk us through the red?
Yeah, sure.
I've got this one.
So that's the Côte du Rhone. So pretty interesting label, also a bit more Art Deco, you know, in the 30s.
How do they choose the labels? Who chooses out of this huge cooperative? How do they just decide?
I think it was a work. I think this label was specifically made for UK at the start.
Okay. Yeah.
So I read that it's to kind of represent like the Parisian cafes.
Yeah, Parisian cafe, like, you know, all the atmosphere of French Cancan, Moulin Rouge, you know.
And easy drinking and having a good time, no pretense.
So no, it was a great label. I think it's English people who really think about at the start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're quite sensitive to the labels. Yeah.
And I always, this one I was saying, 'cause I used to write for the Waitrose food magazine, and this one always I would write about at Christmas time, and they'd have it in magnums, and it was just, you brought out a bottle with that label and a magnum form, and it was a Rhone, you know, a spicy, juicy Rhone, and that was your party sorted. It's great.
So Les Dauphins. So for reds, you all know the king of the varietals of red is Grenache Noir. So that's 65% of the total area is Grenache. But we also have the chance to have few ones like Syrah, where we added to the Grenache. And we'll talk a bit later about some other varietals who are more dedicated on village and cru, especially Mourvèdre and Cinsault and some Carignan as well. But for this blend, is only Grenache and Syrah.
And is it mainly Grenache?
Yeah, it's 80% Grenache, 20 Syrah, a smaller amount of Syrah.
Yeah, no, it's such fun, that kind of juicy red currant cranberry juice just kind of sprays out, but then there's like a little bit of and I guess it's probably like the Syrah too, giving it a little bit of rusticity just on, you know, in the background, but it's a really well balanced wine.
Yeah, really juicy, really smooth. You know, tannin are naturally ripe. 300 days of sun, it makes a difference.
Yeah.
On ripeness.
Great acidity there too.
Sorry?
There's a lot of fruit, but there's great acidity to balance it out.
Good freshness. pH are around 3.6, 3.7, so not too acidic and not too floppy.
This with like turkey and cranberry sauce, or, you know, little mini cocktail sausages, or devils on horseback, and, you know, all that kind of festive fare. I'm just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you can, like both of these wines, you can kind of see over Christmas with all the picking that you do. I think, you know, if you're picking on like the turkey and the kind of
the stuffing, the meat stuffing, you know,
it's great. And then if you're picking on the little cocktail sausages wrapped in bacon, or your devils on horseback, that's prunes, isn't it? With
exactly, prunes.
All these little picky things, these are perfect just to have on the table. And we've got a couple of questions about your blending, Laurent. So one question from Hannah was, do you vinify the wines or the grapes, the varieties separately and then blend, or do you vinify them together?
It depends of the area we work on. Some of them, it's also a question of ripeness. Syrah come first, so you can't blend it on, I would say, on fruit. you can't blend on fruit and do the fermentation together. So you always have to, you vinify, you make the wine from your Syrah first, then comes the Grenache, and Grenache you have to be really patient. You can't, if you crop your Grenache too early, watch out, it's going to be sometimes terrible. So you have to be patient to let the Grenache coming, to have the right ripeness. And at the end, you waiting for the Mourvèdre, but we'll talk about later. But in some area, especially in the south of where we are, not in the higher altitude vineyard, in the south, so more earlier area, we are able to blend grapes together. So the late Syrah with the early Grenache can go together in a tank, and we can vinify them in the same. So blend directly on grapes. That can be possible, yeah.
And with the whites as well, are there some that are more early, late ripening, so it's harder?
Yes, as well. There is early, like we always want. For the IGP, it's more the Chardonnay first, and then we're waiting for the Grenache. So for the white, it's more grapes to grapes, because they crop, we press them, put the juice on the side, so it's more individual tanks. For reds, it can be mixed sometimes.
Yeah.
And going back to, because we talked about claret a little bit earlier, Peter said that he tried a Paul Matt 100% claret before, and he really didn't like it because it just felt too perfumed. In your opinion, can it be made really well, or should it just be kept for blends?
It's pretty rare you find a pure claret, honestly, because there is not a lot of surface as well. But I think it's nice to use it as a spice. You know, some varietals are nicer as a spice. Like you said, claret. There is also le Bourboulinque, which is a really strange name, but we use it as well as a white varietals as a spice. On top of Grenache, on top of Viognier, it's nice to have those varietals on blends, yeah.
And I suppose if it was delicious on its own, there would be more planted, right?
I would say I think there is several aspects to have a varietals more spread. You know, there is more the culture on top of the quality of the grapes. It's also the facility of growing.
Yeah.
The facility of training, etc. You know, there is few aspects, and I think Grenache and Viognier are probably the most easier grapes to be used.
And in your next range up, you have a red, a white, and a rosé. How does the blending change for those wines?
Yeah, because that says reserve on the label.
Yeah.
When people see reserve on the label, what does that mean for some people?
So reserve, it's more in a way we're going to select some particular parcels, some particular selection, to bring the level of concentration higher. For the Dauphin, we say, you know, it's more an approach of easy drinking, joie de vivre, etc. So we're more going to play on the aromatic, on the pleasure aspect.
Yeah.
On reserve, we're more in the reflection of food pairing.
Okay.
All wines is going to be used during a lunch or during a dinner. So I saw a comment about Les Dauphins red. Les Dauphins red can be drunk on its own. You don't need to pair it with something. You know, it's pleasure. It's fruity. It's smooth. It's juicy. And on the reserve is going to be a bit more complex, about a bit more concentrate. So with food is going to pair a bit more.
We've got a question. We talked I was asking you earlier about the kind of, before we came on live, about your day, because it sounds like you know, pretty busy. We've got a question: as head winemaker of such a large cooperative, what does your typical day at work look like? I imagine there's no typical day, but, yeah, and it depends on where you are in the year. But kind of what do you get hands on with?
It's mostly blending. We try to taste from 10 to noon, you know, just before lunch. So that's the time we concentrate on blending, tasting and blending. So we receive wine from all the different vineyards, and we taste, and we work on different blend who are planned to be bottled. So we have to get a blend planning. Like next week we're going to bottle, I don't know, the reserve red. So 2 weeks before we're going to work the blend of reserve. So it's more like, yeah, every day in the morning we kind of blend. After I have to take care of the winery as well, of the worker who is going to work with the wine to blend physically, because the wine comes from different tanks. So there is people, you know, my colleagues, they have to move the wine with little, you know, with pump. So they pump the wine with hoses and pump. They pump from a tank to another tank with specific volume and specific proportion to make the blend correctly. So we have to make the work order. That's part of the job as well. So we give the work to the guys to make the blend. We have to make the filtration. So to filter the wine from a tank to another tank to be ready for bottling. What else? I spoke a bit earlier about classification. That's a big part of our work at the moment. So we receive all the wine from the vintage from all the different vineyards, and we make classification. So this morning we taste, I don't know, maybe 50 wines. A blind tasting, blind tasting.
Blind tasting, yeah.
A blind tasting with 50 wines. We don't want to know where it comes from, because it plays in your brain for sure. So blind tasting, just number 1 to 50, blind, and you taste, you make comments, you put notation, and we're able to see different style of wine. Also think about where it's going to go. Is it going to be a premium wine, or is it going to be a entry level wines? Is this kind of stuff we're doing at the moment. During vintage, we go to every vineyard and every small wineries to help the winemakers to make the wine we want. So that's a big part as well.
So how many wines would you necessarily taste to make your standard cuvee, the red cuvee, which everyone's tasting?
As a red cuvee, we'll taste, I think, 200 wines. Yeah, something like that, just for the reds. But you know, we have two different level of wine.
I was just tasting the reserve. The reserve is stunning.
Yes, the reserve.
Where is this available now? Like, I know it's available in the States, and it's got extremely good reviews, and people can get it all over the country. It's on wine.com, and it's distributed everywhere, and I can get it in my local
it's not yet,
wine
it's not yet available in UK, I think.
Do you know when it's coming to the UK?
Lydia said she saw it in Waitrose this evening, so it must have just arrived.
I mean, I just love the concentration, because that's is it a GSM blend?
No, it's only Grenache and Syrah.
Wow.
With a higher proportion of Syrah.
Right. No, and you do get that extra intensity. You get like sandalwood. You get a lovely herbal freshness there, and kind of cooked blueberries as well. There's some like lovely aspects going on. Merino cherries. I put silky smooth. There's a tiny little bit, you know, dark cherries as well. It's really, really, really well balanced.
Dark cherries, red flowers also. It's pretty flowery and spicy.
And I think it's going for $13 or oh wait, no, maybe it's well, it all depends. It can be $13.99 and can go up to $15 depending where you're. But I just think it's incredible value. Just to have that balance, that spice, that intensity of fruit, those really silky tannins. I know you said, oh, you should have them with food, but I'm like, oh my gosh, well, in the cool evenings, and now I'm such a softie living in LA. I'm finding the evenings cold here, so I don't know what I'm going to do when I go back to the UK. But but no, this is absolutely. This was really gorgeous, and I know that Decanter gave it 97 points, but I'm never someone who gets dictated by points because I'm like, well, that's great, but I just want to see it for myself. But I was like, no, okay, no, I can appreciate where they're coming from, absolutely, and I think we'll do very, very well in the States.
Yeah, we hope so. We hope so.
But I think it kind of crosses the line, as in it should appeal still to UK people who want still the fruit, and there's still plenty of spice and brightness to lift it up. But in the States too, they also they like a little bit of that vanilla and the kind of riper fruit, and that's what they're used to from like local wine. Right. I think it's actually a really interesting wine which can straddle both markets.
I think so. Yeah, it's more international profile also. I will say it's a Côte du Rhone 2.0. Like we wanted at first, we really work on field selection. So it's not a luck we get this kind of result.
Yeah.
Work has been done on vineyard. I'm a true believer that wine is made in the vineyard. Winemakers, we are not magicians. Wine, when the grapes is right and ripe, it's like 80% of the work is done. So work has to be done in vineyard, in selection, and after there is not much more to do. So the ripe ripeness, the right concentration, and you're going to express what Laurent Pare has to give, like lots of dark fruit, red fruit, lots of spiciness, lots of smoothness. It's really round. It's really complex.
No, it's just in terms of intensity, structure, and spice. All of those are kind of amplified and brought even more harmoniously together and it's only about 2 or 3 quid more. That's the thing. That's what's so amazing about it when it does get to the UK, or it sounds like
there is not a big difference of price. No. I don't think so.
No, and it's incredible. So I think it's very smart marketing. You kind of get them on the ladder, and you can start off with the cuvee, and then just for 2 or 3 quid more, just to try the reserve. I think it's really awesome.
And what's the rosé like? Because I've not got a rosé, so you're very special, really. You got the rosé. What's the rosé like? I'm really intrigued.
Oh,
what grapes is it?
It's a blend, isn't it, Laurent?
Right. We mainly use Grenache.
Grenache. Okay.
Grenache Noir because Syrah naturally is going to extract lots of color. We use a tiny bit of Syrah.
It's fairly light. Yeah.
Yes. So
it's 85% Grenache, 10% Syrah, and 5% Sensol.
Yeah. So it's really most of it is Grenache. So we really made a change 6 to 7 years ago, saying, okay, we don't want any more rosé from Cellier. The Cellier, what it is?
Yeah.
The bleeding method. Yeah. Maybe you can explain to people what Cellier is.
So at the time they were putting the red grapes in a tank, and to make a concentration, they were draining a part of the juice, of the free run juice were in the tank, releasing a bit of rosé. But the rosé was already really colorful.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to have really colorful, really round rosé, like, but the example is Tavel, Tavel, rosé from Tavel,
Tavel and Mondol, yeah.
Really round, really powerful rosé. And we made a really big change in the approach of making rosé. So making rosé, but from the grapes who are dedicating to make rosé. So you don't make Cellier anymore. It's just rosé from.
The Cellier is like almost like a byproduct of the red wine.
It was before.
You're making the red wine. Yeah, the Cellier. So the previous one is.
That's right.
You're making the red wine more concentrated, so you take off the little bit of extra wine, and then you kind of go, okay, that's our rosé. Rather than throwing it away, let's sell it as rosé. Whereas now you're specifically making rosé.
Yeah, we have a specific approach, and we have a really a philosophy of making rosé. So that means you don't crop your rosé at 2 o'clock of the afternoon when it's 40 degrees outside. You crop it during the night when it's still fresh to keep the natural freshness of the night, the natural freshness of the aroma. So cropping, it's harvesting is between 3 and 8 o'clock of the morning when it's still cool outside. You bring it really quickly at the winery, pressing really quickly as well to get the light color. So you don't want a maceration. You don't want to keep the juice in contact with the skin. So you release the free run juice really quickly to have a really light and brilliant and brilliant color. Wow. And then after it's a question of controlling and managing the fermentation with the temperature, with the right temperature, right yeast to get and express the right aroma.
So thinking about the that making that decision to change has kind of prompted another question of, do you follow trends? Do you really kind of tune into what the trends are, or does someone at the winery tune into what the trends are and then change accordingly? Or do you guys as a cooperative decide we want to do this and kind of stick to your guns? How do you approach that?
It's more impulsed by the technical team. For sure, we follow the trends because we know, like, since maybe 10 years, people are more into light rosé, not heavy and fruity. We want rosé with more flowery and lightness. We don't want like heavy fruit rosé. So technically, we had to make a move, and we had to make a change. So asking the vine growers to crop in the night was not the easy part.
Not easy.
No. So definitely not. So we have to say, okay, you're going to have to get up at maybe 2, start cropping at 2, 3 o'clock of the morning. So that was a big move for them.
Yeah.
Then the investment in the wineries was quite huge, like buying in press instead of tanks. That was big, but the result is amazing. We completely changed the profile of our rosé.
No, it's so lovely because you can tell, like, the Grenache absolutely exudes out of the glass. You get that lovely berry fruit, but then there is a white kind of peppery spice, and there's a minerality there, and it's super juicy but elegant. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I was very, and I think it's $10 in the States too. So again, when I'm thinking about what other, like, Rhone, well, I just like rosés in general, there's so many insipid Provence rosés available here at $24. When I think, for like $10 to $12, I can actually have something which is like elegant, and it does have that white pepper kind of slight savory hint, which would go great with food as well. Like, I'm even just like thinking of like smoked chicken and charcuterie boards and of course cheese. But no, I was very impressed when it arrived. And as I said, like, I opened up to share with my landlords yesterday, and I had to tell them to stop drinking it because I had to have something left in the bottle for today.
We've also had a question about why can't we find more, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, Laurent, but maybe someone else does. Why can't we find more, maybe Amelia, why can't we find more white Rhones in the UK? Because it's very red heavy, isn't it?
I'm gonna let Laurent answer that, and then I'll like.
I think whites, you know, the surface of whites are pretty low, pretty small. In general, we would love to sail more whites internationally, but
Is
I
it
don't.
bigger in like locally, like a white's as big as reds locally?
No, not at all. Like I think it's 90, 75, 80% of red naturally. We do maybe 15% rosé and 5% white. So we don't have a lot of volumes as well. So naturally, the wine is not really available.
Yeah, and I think Rhone Rosé, there's more appeal. I think lots of people, white Rhone people, I don't think they even understand it. I don't know. It's not a Chardonnay. It's not a Sauvignon Blanc. It's not
Exactly.
a Pinot Grigio. It's
exactly. It's really hard to
I can imagine how hard it is to sell. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess people kind of cling on to that. Oh, I like Sauvignon Blanc or I like Chardonnay. Whereas Rhone.
Do you like a Grenache? You don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
A Grenache Blanc, but Viognier start to be a bit more popular, I would say.
Well, maybe with more of the New World planting Rhone varieties, maybe the Rhone will have more demand itself for the white varieties.
So now we are working on it, but it's a long process.
Yeah, you can't force demand, can you?
No. No.
And so then the next level up are the Winemakers series, right?
Yeah, vine grower series, yes. So
how many are in this series?
So don't you think he's handsome?
Yes, but I've got two. I've got two very handsome.
He's not. He's the beard one is not your cup of tea.
Yeah, they're rugged.
Yeah, exactly. It's very rugged, rustic.
Yes,
absolutely. I'd expect nothing less.
So he's a friend of mine. So his estate. Can I say estate?
Estate, yeah.
Yeah, his estate is in a Plan de Dieu. So Plan de Dieu, you know what the translation is? Plan de Dieu is God. Yeah, God's plan. God's plan, because the area before was a forest. We're talking like 2 centuries ago, 3 centuries ago. The area where the vineyard is now was a big forest, and this forest was full of thieves and robbers. So when people had to cross the forest, they were giving their spirit to God. Can I say?
Okay. Yeah.
So they say, okay, if I'm crossing this forest or not, is going to be from God. So they call it God's plan. So le plan de Dieu. But in addition of God's plan, it's also because it's a really flat. Yeah, putting their trust in God. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Chris. But it's also really flat and plan area. So there is a double signification. So le plan de Dieu is really a flat area, maybe given by God, I don't know. And so it's made mainly from red clay mixed with big pebbles. So the soil is completely covered of pebbles. And
does that help retain the heat, I guess? Do the pebbles help retain the heat for the vines, or?
The pebbles, they get the heat and release it during the night. So there is still a natural heat and warmness around the grapes, and naturally the grapes are ripe because the water is available in the red clay. The clay is keeping the water, and the water is available for the grapes, who is drained by the sun, and it's that's the ripeness cycle. So Plan de Dieu, it's really a solar wine.
Solar powered, almost.
A solar powered grape, yeah.
And it's a GSM, a Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre blend.
Yes.
And from 2017, and it's got again like 90 points from decanter, but it's not even that much more expensive, is it?
No, it's still reasonable price, huh?
I think I was seeing in the States it's about $17.
I'm not sorry, I'm not into numbers, but maybe, I don't know, 15.
No, but it was just interesting because it was just interesting seeing the cuvee, the reserve,
Yes.
and then the winemakers just for a little bit more, and you get immediately you're drawn into the story, you're drawn into specific sites, and I know that the Boum Meras, even though it's the same blend, it's from a slightly higher elevated area, so it's more kind of earthy. It's not maybe so resplendent and opulent. It's a
Definitely it's more fresh. It's more a bit more acid, a nice tension, natural tension of the wine. So completely different style. Primera is higher altitude, and Plan de Dieu is on the bottom of the valley. But no, it's not so expensive wines.
And I remember tasting them with you for the first time at Waitrose, and they weren't like officially released, and so we were kind of being naughty and tasting them under the table. And I was like, these are great. I'm so excited, but I can't really say that I've been doing this because I'm not really meant to be doing this, but this is so delicious. So no, I'm very excited that I did get sent the Plan de Dieu and is it Pumaras? Is that how I pronounce it?
It's depends. Some people they say the ass or not the ass. Or you can say Primera or Primeras.
Primera or Pumaras. Okay, so you can say either or. Okay, that's
depend of people, yeah.
And above the winemakers, the Vine Growers series, you have another range too.
Yes, Les Crus.
And that's kind of the famous ones, isn't it?
I think tonight we said that we choose the Chateauneuf du Pape.
Yeah.
But we also have Vaqueras, Queyran, and Vin Sobre. So there is few cru where we are. The one we are really close off are Vin Sobre and Queyran. So it's 10 kilometers away from where we are. So it's really the area we want to be part of. Chateauneuf du Pape, it's also one of our wine growers has a parcel where we produce the wine we're going to taste. And there is also Vaqueras, where I think we have two wine growers who are making Vaqueras.
So I love Vaqueras, yeah.
It's really tiny surface, really tiny. It's a few thousands of bottles, no more.
And with that, would you say that in terms of winemaking or in terms of the amount of different sites you work with, I presume, what is the difference? Obviously, you're working with less sites, but is there any difference in terms of the grapes or the winemaking methods?
No, it's pretty similar, but Vin Sobre is really vinified on a specific area, so it's really dedicated. Vin Sobre, it's like big body, big tannin, big structure, aging in foudre and barrels. And the opposite, Chateauneuf du Pape and Vaqueras will be more in refined, more in finesse. So more delicate process, more kind of delicate extraction.
Yeah.
It's how we work, and so it would be more extraction, and Chateauneuf and Vaqueras will be more in softness, I would say.
Yeah, because Chateauneuf du Pape is kind of, I think that was the first Rhone wine I learned, because my parents were like, oh yeah, here's a fancy wine, and brought out the Chateauneuf du Pape. And I think, again, this, sorry everyone who's watching, this one isn't available in the UK yet, possibly will be in the future. But yeah, when you go and look in, wine shops and stuff, it's kind of more around the 20, 30 or above kind of price range. And, having that kind of real concentration and kind of elevates the wine experience, but then it also has that kind of feel good part of it as well, because you feel like you're drinking something special.
No, that's right.
Do you have any Chateauneuf du Pape white? Do you make any white Chateauneuf du Pape?
No, we don't. There is some Chateauneuf du Pape white, but we don't make it.
I'll just share this. I mean, it's not yours, so don't take offense. But
Okay.
I had this recently, which is from Famille Lanson, and it was £40 a bottle, and I got it from my local butchers. So yeah, I mean they're selling wine, but it's just. Like, that was incredible to try a white Chateauneuf du Pape. I hadn't heard of it before, so when I saw it, I was like, I have to. And the butcher's like, do you know how much it costs? It doesn't matter. I just have to try it.
But the proportion of white is really small. I think it's 5% of the vineyard with white.
I love it.
And the vine growers we're working has no white, so we don't make whites.
No, fair enough. And again, it is just so hard to find. I was like saying, at the beginning, I think this is when you have bad connection, but I got given by a lovely friend some bottles of white Chateauneuf du Pape from the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s, and I opened them up on my birthday last year, and they were still so alive and nuanced and interesting. I mean, the one which was from the 80s was, yes, of course, it was like had oxidative like nuances, but it was still the fruit was singing. It was bright acidity, and it was so interesting because I tried it out on like all the members of my family and some friends, and everyone had different favorites, and it went so well with the food. And I always use that example when people think, oh, white wine, it can't age like a red wine. I just think of white Chateauneuf du Pape, and I'm like, And actually, and even white Bordeaux, but white Chateauneuf du Papes, I was just so impressed with these ones, particularly from the early 80s. They'd aged really, really well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go back and get some more of them.
Yes, I'm so impressed that your local butcher has one. That must be a very posh butcher. I'm very jealous.
Well, we've got, I live in Marlow, we've got Tom Kerridge restaurants here, so it's Tom Kerridge's butcher. Yeah, so yeah, posh butcher.
But it's original white with meat.
Oh, we've got people from Marlow on the webinar. Yeah, it's the Butcher's Tap. You can get that from. It's amazing. Just kind of, wanted to talk a little bit about I mean, this year has obviously been crazy because,
Why?
COVID, lockdown, maybe.
It's been great.
How have you coped with that? Like, as a cooperative, within your day-to-day? I mean, it must be so hard to do distancing, or are you all in a bubble? How does it work?
That community, how does one operate as a community?
In fact, we have two waves. We had the one that in March, April, where the confinement were pretty crazy, pretty strict. So at this time, but me as I'm working in operation, so we can't homework, like testing from work. That's not possible. And now the company managed pretty well to put the measure in place, and we didn't have so many cases inside the company, so we succeeded to still be able to produce and bottle our wine. So it went pretty good, and the sales at this time were pretty good as well, because people were confined. The only things they have to do is drinking or preparing food and cooking and drinking. So the consumption of wine was pretty good. and so we had to use like the barrier measure, but when you're tasting, you can't use a mask, and you're speaking, so it's like it can be dangerous. But we managed to not having some cases, and we had the second waves right like 1 month ago, and still we managed to still operating our business, so it's okay. It's okay. It's going pretty well. So I don't know exactly if I answer the question, but
you've been managing it. The company's put in processes, and you know, I think it's making a lot of people think just kind of in the future as well, like how do we carry on, you know, working in different ways, and how do we change our practices and being more open-minded to that. And I was wondering if maybe that had any kind of effect on considerations in the winery, because you're, in terms of like the future, like responding to, you know, climate change threats or anything else, or marketing opportunities, or, you know, how does like a company that's that big kind of respond to those pressures?
one of the thought we had recently, and especially in March, April, during the first confinement, it's also like changing our way of thinking. You know, why are we selling wines to why are we sending wines to New Zealand or to Australia? Does it make really sense to send wines so far away instead of concentrating in the local market? I will say the European market. You know, sending wines to Sweden or Bulgaria or UK, for sure, it's our first market, but it's really a way of thinking, like stopping crazy transportation. That's a really thinking we have at the moment, like stopping to send wines to New Zealand. They have wines there, they maybe don't need to receive maybe not our wines, you know, they still want to get some Chateauneuf du Pape, or but like a 5 pounds bottle or 10 pounds bottle, maybe we don't need to send that so far away. So let's concentrate maybe on the local extension of local European market. So that was one of the big thinking we had at this time. And in terms of sustainability, we had lots of actions at the moment. Like I think you will find that in the supermarket, all our cardboard around the bottles, they are rough, like they are natural cardboard. There is no gloss.
It's not been like waxed or anything.
There is no gloss and no wax on it, like natural. The ink we're using are natural as well. We're looking also, you know, the capsules around the neck to be made from corn. We are already using corn made capsules.
Wow.
Which are biodegradable. What else? Also the ink and the label are natural ink. On our bagging box, instead of you know, sometimes you have a plastic handle. So we erase that. We don't want plastic anymore. The handle is directly in the cardboard, in the bagging box. You just have to take it like that instead of handle it. We want to erase the plastic around our, you know, the palette. A palette, when we put the box together.
Yeah.
Instead of putting plastic wrap around, we managed to make a specific setup, kind of Lego stuff. You know the Lego for the kids? The game Lego.
Yeah.
So you imagine the top of your bottle are the little pin, and the bottom of your cardboard is so you can put your cardboard together without using.
Wow.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's great.
So it's still in progress. We have the bigger organic vineyard as well in France. So 10% of our vineyard is organic. So it's 1,200 hectares of organic vineyard. I think I'm forgetting some initiative.
I think because I think the wines in the UK aren't organic, but they are vegan. So that's something else that you do. And as well as all of the kind of packaging and sustainability and waste reduction, you've got solar panels as well across all of the winery.
Yes, we have all the new warehouse is covered of solar panel. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, you know, we've got a comment from Ned saying that it's great to see the large producers such as yourselves leading with these types of initiatives, because it's going to help the whole industry shift. Because, you know, you get a lot in the wine industry, or we hear as consumers a lot in the wine industry about, oh no, this is how we've always done it, this is how we do it. So it's fantastic to see that, you know, there are these big measures being investigated and changed, and that, you know, with big guys like yourself kind of leading that change, it will really help the industry to change.
Yes.
Someone did ask the question, how will Brexit affect your relationship with the UK wine market?
Actually, in the last 2 months, I never bought so many wines to UK. I think I think the groceries are preparing for the Brexit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all stocking up.
Yeah, we bottled a lot, and they want the wine to be shipped before the end of the year. So, but no, the relation is, I think, like, to be honest, UK is our first market in general in terms of export. So we have to be really conscious that it's really important for us. And the relation is pretty good. It's growing back. It's been declining, but it's growing back. Relation with the grocery like Asda, like Waitrose, we want to build more relation and sell more wine for sure.
So they're not bullying you.
Eh?
They're not bullying you, I hope.
No, definitely not. No, I think the relation are quite good. You know, we get offers, we respond, we send sample quite often. We're looking to make new partnership like Majestic. That's a new one, Majestic. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I think it helps too, because you do have that versatility in terms of range, but you know, your business model does allow you to accommodate for difficult times and different business models back in the UK. So you, out of anyone, I would have thought, would be able to navigate this interesting time.
I don't know what Brexit will do. You know, I don't know if you remember, like when we said in 2000, you know, the year 2000 is going to be the end of the world. But no, but Brexit won't be the end of the world. It will be administrative pain in the ass, but I think relation, you know, wine relation will still be there.
And we'll still want to drink your wine.
Exactly.
Definitely, and you'll come to France for holidays. We'll come to England for holidays as well. You know, it won't change. Just political stuff.
Someone just asked, what is your favorite wine that isn't from the Rhone?
I really like a glass of ice wine from Ontario Peninsula.
Was not expecting that.
A Vidal from Ontario Peninsula, like Inniskilling Vidal.
How easy is it to get international wines where you are in Southern Rhone?
Fucking difficult.
I was going to say.
Because I think we are so lucky in the UK, and I don't know how it is so much in the States, but definitely in the UK, we can get anything. We can get.
No, London is like, the UK is so sophisticated in that respect. LA is very unsophisticated, but yeah, I was just curious what you were able to get hold of locally.
No, it's really, I think we are a bit chauvin, as you know. So in Rhone Valley, you will find 80% of Rhone Valley wine. In Bordeaux, 80% of Bordeaux wines. But like, you have one bottle of Chilean wine, one bottle of Austrian wine.
And then you're probably not allowed to drink any wine from Bordeaux, are you?
No.
Either Rhone or...
No, you're fired. You're fired if you do that. So... And no, but I've been living in Montreal, and it was fantastic to get all the wine you want. So no, I think UK as well. You have a great diversity of wine, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I'm really pleased by it, and it's also meant that our webinars can be quite broad as well. So
diverse, yeah.
We've had quite a range of topics, discussions, guests, different personalities. It's been fun. I just wanted to answer someone's question they asked when the next one was, so they probably weren't here when we first introed. But Amelia and I have got another webinar planned for 2021. We've got one that we're talking about. We haven't decided exactly what it's going to be or how it's going to be set up, but we've got the idea, we've got the seed. So there'll definitely be one more, and just sign up to mine or Amelia's newsletters, and then you'll find out when they are. And Amelia will still be doing her Instagram lives, I'm sure.
Things, and yes, I will still be around. And you should tune into the Wine Show Series 3 on Amazon Prime now. If you need any more like vineyards inspiration over Christmas, it's quite a fun series.
So I guess just kind of one final question from me, Laurent. What are you doing for Christmas?
That's a big question. I would love to. I would love my children see their grandparents. That's what I would like. But we'll see. I don't know exactly. We have to take the decision what we're going to do. But definitely having a family Christmas for sure.
Yeah. Well, we wish you all the best with your wines. We're looking forward to seeing more of them come over to the UK and across the US. Thank you so much for joining us. We've had a lovely time.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to you.
Lovely to see you again, and thank you so much. And yeah, I've been saving these two. I love the Winemakers range, so
have a nice roast for dinner for Christmas. Sorry.
Yeah, the Rhone wines definitely pair well with Christmas, especially the reds, kind of the smoky fireside. If anyone's got a fire at home, cuddle up with a blanket. It's really delicious.
Might be able to do that in LA, but I will still enjoy them.
So just a red with a piece of chocolate. That's the best.
Yeah. Well, thank you all very much.
Okay, take care.
Thanks everyone for listening. It's been great having you here, joining us on our 2020 journey. Hopefully we will see you in 2021. Bye.
Okay,
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.